So shall I introduce you to the two next speakers? Naveen Singh, CEO at Inery Blockchain, and Fabrice Brassard, French, you can hear it, CEO at IC, who is also a military drone maker. And well, you will be, let's introduce yourself, okay, and have fun.
No. Hello? There we go.
Hello. Yeah. Welcome, Naveen, Fabrice. Please introduce yourself so the audience can come to know what amazing things you guys do.
Well, good morning to everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here. So I'm French, and we develop, the name of the company is IC. We are a technology provider and data provider, so I'm going to explain the difference. We do design and manufacture heavy drones. We have a dual activity. So we focus on sustainable development, and we have also a, development in the field of the military industry. So the company is a young startup. We actually took over a company in 2020 that has developed a state-of-the-art, drone appliance, airborne, and they spent more than 25 million in developing those heavy drones, so they can fly over like 20 hours. We're talking about a payload of 250 kilograms, well, due to the dramatic event that we face in Europe, the military sector has became a major field on our side.
Thank you, Fabrice. Naveen, please.
Thank you, gentlemen. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Naveen. So my roots are from India, but most of my life I lived in Switzerland, so I'm Swiss. The journey started, I was a professional athlete, and then from athletics it came to IT. I've been long now in IT in sectors of telecoms, health tech, and eventually then landed up in the blockchain space, the Web 3.0 space, and still a student. I'm learning the space because I think it's really early days of this industry. Maybe a lot of people will disagree with me, but I think at the technological level we are still very early, and glad to be here, so ready to be grilled by those two gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
So, Fabrice, let me start with you. Why would we need drones? Why not stick to like traditional man-driven planes or whatever?
Well, that's a tough question. There are many answers that we could bring here to the table. I think the first aspect is light airborne is probably the future of aviation. And the fact that we may use unmanned vehicle aircraft is going to change the way we approach, the way we analyze data. So it's going to be increasingly the number of applications are becoming increasingly varied, and I believe that self-driving and autonomous airborne will be a game changer in the years to come.
And wouldn't that leave a lot of pilots out of their job?
I think the challenge is ahead. We've seen drones, but small aircraft. Let's call it like this, to be developed. Are we going to be able to develop big jumbos without any pilot? I believe it's going to take some time. So I believe just based on the application and the approach that we currently, trying to
develop.
To take, yes. So your question is a tough question because what we
that's the job
here,
to make the tough questions.
Yeah, well, it's a tough one because you could make the analysis. You could also look at cars and do we want to have autonomous cars at some point? Probably, but it's going to take quite a long time before it happens. I believe that drones are going to change a way of living. You can see already this with many players like Amazon's who wants to have the ability to deliver products and goods in the backyard of your home. And I just believe that's just the beginning. Should we envision a different world? I think so, yes.
And how is any of this related to, or how is the aviation industry related to the blockchain technology?
When we're talking about drones, safety is then a major concern. So data security and integrity is the utmost importance. So blockchain here, along with AI, for instance, through machine learning, are going to secure the protocols and policies that will be put in place by regulation and custom safety standards. So it's a major topic, and I believe that blockchain is going to be a major, will play a very
important role.
Yes.
Now that you mentioned AI, Naveen, what are your thoughts of integration in terms of using the AI technology with the drone technology, and what do you see happening in the industry? I do understand, and I do believe that the integration has to be seamless. What are your thoughts on this? What do you see AI taking over?
So, I think drone is a good example of AI. It's actually, humans can fly the drones, or they will be the pilots, but it could be done through artificial intelligence also. So, I think if you take a step back, if you see all the data which we churn, and if you take the analytics out of the data, and then feed it into the machine to learn from those. If we control it right, then it can do wonderful things. And I think it's not even started yet, the artificial intelligence part, and it's going to take over in all from software to the hardware system. It's coming.
Do you have any?
We were talking before about the idea, the misconception that the public may have about the blockchain being hacked. Could you please elaborate on that?
Well, let's ask the people who are present here. So how many of you guys, you must have read all the news, and I'm sure you all are somewhere or other related with the blockchain or crypto. How many of you, please raise your hands, have read or heard or know that there has been hacks in the blockchain? So yeah, more than 50% present here. So I just want to give my opinion on that. There has been no public blockchain which has been hacked until now. It's always the bridges, it's always the side parts which are connected, or the pathway between Web 2.0 to the blockchain side, which is always being hacked. But most of the media and normal people like us, we have been fed, or we read that the blockchains were hacked.
You mentioned a couple of concepts that perhaps need a bit more explanation. What is the bridge? What is Web 2? What is Web 3?
So,
just imagine that we don't know anything, and we probably don't.
So you asking a sportsman such a tough question. I think there are many other people here who know. So according to my understanding, I think whatever we do on internet now with smartphones, everything, we are into the Web 2.0 world where there's the internet which is provided to us as a service, and then there are different applications and softwares based on the internet through the hardware which come to us. Now our participation is just the part which we take care in the Web 2.0. Rest is all in the hands of big tech companies. Apple can remove an app tomorrow, you can't do anything. You know, Twitter can delete your account. You are on actually the mercy of big tech companies. They take your data, WhatsApp, Telegram. It's all free of cost, so they give you free. We use it. I mean, not you, me also. I use it, and the cost we pay is through our privacy or through our trends, which then again, they take the data out of you, they run the analytics, they feed it in the machine tells them, okay, send them advertisement of this and this and this. So Web 2.0 is something which we are just a mute participant, but we are not in control of anything. And then some very smart people said, okay, freedom is very important, we need to develop something which we call Web 3.0, where my participation in the internet or anything which is connected to the internet, I should have all the rights of who shall I share the data, nobody can hack me, nobody can block me, nobody can actually make me an outcast from 1 second to other, like these big tech companies. And that was the whole vision behind Web 3.0. I think we are still at the infra level, very beginning of Web 3.0. We are mostly based on Web 2.0. And that's why you have a decentralized world where you have a blockchain. But if the blockchain is then connected through the bridge, which is again a centralized part through a server to a wallet, these are the vulnerable parts which get hacked. And then the message goes out that the blockchain has been hacked. So the Web 3.0 world is in the starting now, and we are completely based on Web 2.0. It will take some time until unless it will be an independent Web 3.0. We need a lot of projects which provide infrastructure for that. We will need a lot of good brains which will start doing some things which they are also doing to make it completely independent from the existing Web 2.0.
But what type of infrastructure? Like data infrastructure, physical infrastructure?
Actually everything. Let's say different servers. Now, old companies, everything is based out of servers. But if you take the start of the blockchain, then every computer can become a node. You don't need a server. Depends exactly if you want to do the mining, and then you need really hardcore servers. But that's one part which you then say, okay, we don't need a data center. We don't need a firewall. We don't need internet security. We have one laptop or a normal computer with good graphics that they can actually act as a node. Now you have thousands of these nodes who nobody knows, and this is a peer-to-peer network. Nobody can shut it down, nobody can control it. As long as one node is live, your whole data or the whole blockchain is live, and they can communicate with the thing. As long as you have your private key, you can actually retrieve your, I mean, in the end, it's all data. What is a Bitcoin? It's just a key and it's a data. So in the end, it all boils down to data, and that's why, I mean, that's why we were very much focused on the data part.
Let me connect what you just said about the nodes and the network not being able to be shut down with Fabrice's work in building military drones, and I'm picturing the movie Terminator. So AI, self-driven military vehicles, technology becoming self-aware. Is that a possible future, or is it just Hollywood?
Well, I hope not. It's going to be that. I mean, I think, you know, we have to determine the boundaries and set, you know, protective policies and regulations so that we don't cross, you know, certain level of
ethical boundaries, let's say.
Yes.
But perhaps if AI becomes self-aware, there's no ethics in a machine, unless you can embed it in code. But can you do that?
Well,
That's a question for both of you. I mean,
look, I think the military drones, they should be centralized. There should be somebody accountable to that, and somebody has to control them. You cannot put them decentralized, because then they're going to go rogue and they're going to go anywhere, because all of us has a kind of naughty thing in our us.
So Terminator is possible.
And nobody knows when it pops out. So I think the drone part, they can use the power of blockchain, smart contract facility and other things to actually store their sensitive data, process the data. Because one good thing about blockchain is only somebody who has a private key can have the access to the data. If they lose it, it's not retrievable. A lot of people ask me that, what about if we put our sensitive data and the private key is lost? What is the remedy? There is no remedy. And they said, well, then it's not good. I said, well, you cannot have both ways, you know. If there is a remedy, then it could be hacked as well.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want it secure, then there is only one thing, that you have your public key and your private key. If your private key is lost, then nobody has access to that, and that's why it's secure. So I think they can use it through the power of the blockchain with this security layer where nobody can actually mess up with their data. So in some ways, it's absolutely complementary to them, and the rest, I think, the drone part should be centralized.
Is that what you guys are thinking? You know, from within the company, from the managerial point of view?
Well, I think Naveen has a good point here. From the military exchange that we have with some of the different supplier subcontractors that we're working with, we have to set those limits. And what you have to remember is that we're talking about unmanned aircraft, but at the end of the day, you have still a pilot that is behind its screen at the moment, and actually controlling, monitoring the airborne navigation and all the operations that are going to be conducted. So we're not yet at that stage. I believe that most of the states have a stake in being ethic, and they are. This is what I can guarantee, at least from the NATO country. And yes, I think you're totally right. Blockchain is going to be a major contribution to those systems. We need a redundancy. We need security, integrity, and the blockchain is the way to actually ensure that we have all those data security around us.
I can add example to that. So we, as a layer 1 blockchain, focus on the data. We just tied up a few months back with a company which is completely owned by Indian government, and it's a company in defense sector. It's called Bell. It's the biggest, you must know about that. It's the biggest tech company in India. We are the first blockchain to tie up with them. I think they have a backlog of 200 something companies in the pipeline to have agreement with them. You tie up with Bell, your valuation skyrockets overnight if you are a defense company. I mean, he must agree with that. And the reason that they did with us is, again, they have a lot of systems, drones. They work with a lot of drones, military radar systems, Navy, and they want to take this sensitive data, and they just want to have a foolproof, completely unhackable data and put it on the blockchain. And put a value contract or a smart contract in place where they can actually define what kind of values from the data can be shared by who and what can be used by who. Now, because of the immutable nature of the blockchain, everything is in the logged and nobody can actually change what has been put in there. So they have a full record. It took us 3 months to actually explain them how it works, because it's again the difference between Web 2.0 and 3.0. But in the end, they're actually from his industry, so it's a good example that how they see the benefit of a blockchain, which actually we didn't thought that blockchain can be used in the defense sector or in the sector where You have different hardware appliances like radar, drones. But in the end, everything churns the data. And data is something which is valuable.
Sorry. Mic was too? Hello? Can you hear me?
No, try this one.
Hello? Yeah, it's okay now. My concern was in terms of exploiting exactly this. Now, usually if there's a human element involved, now with drones, there's no human element involved, but it is still controlled by a centralized, say you're suggesting that it be controlled by a centralized person or an entity. How can, I see a way of exploitation, and how can you avoid that? Because now you don't have a human element, and you mentioned, for example, what's happening in today's world. Now there's a drone there, right, say going out into, I'm just going to say it, into the battlefield or into, and with no human aspect. So in terms of the loss, you see, people get sentimental, oh, if something happened to the drone, okay, but if something happened to the human element, it's a different story. Do you think this could be exploited, or this could be enabling countries to have a far more aggressive approach to, say, warfare or anything like that?
I think wherever humans are involved, it's completely fucked up. Sorry for my language. Wherever we have seen the examples where there's no intervention of humans, let's say Bitcoin as a blockchain, it's just working fine. And you have seen blockchains which they say it's public, but they are still centralized and they are still run by a few humans, and then they stop the blockchain and they run it again and all that thing. So I think as long as the technology is robust and human intervention is less, I think there should be less risk. It's my personal opinion.
Yeah, well, I totally agree with you. So, you know, one of the aspects today is, because we're talking about, you know, wherefore, is that the major challenge is, from the enemy perspective, is how can I eventually control those drones? So faulty, you know, aircraft navigation is becoming a major challenge. And we're talking about, you know, communication interference, jamming, and all that kind of stuff. So I totally agree. You know, the perspective is really ugly when you really want to dig out a little bit more. That's why, you know, on our side, we're not only involved in the military sector, and I'd like to be a little bit more positive, because from that perspective, you know, when we're talking about sustainable development, for instance, we currently trying to develop a state-of-the-art solution where we'd like to tackle and fight against, you know, wildfires. And the approach is going to be totally different. We're facing, you know, mega wildfires, you know, everywhere those years, and the fact is that it's extremely difficult to fight because we still have an empirical approach. So blockchain here is going to change a lot of things. So we're going to bring, you know, some rationalities that we didn't have. So we're going to, you know, map those forests and develop, you know, risk areas based on weather conditions on a daily basis, and so develop patterns so that those drones can fly and detect early enough, you know, any eventual fire somewhere. That's one aspect. The second one, and I believe this is just to, you know, express the potential for AI, because I believe that when we're talking about drones, we have to be way beyond of just thinking, oh, it's just an unmanned, you know, airborne. You have to look at it as a aerial observation platform that is going to carry, you know, many sensors. And with those sensors, we are going to change the way we approach and analyze, data. I'm going to make a simple, comparison with the way we work today. We're using, intensively satellites. So we have a picture at a given time. But with, those platforms, we're going to be able, to collect and proceed data in real time. So that's why, when we're talking about blockchain now, you need redundancy. You need to have, when you do machine learning, to have a decentralized system where you can be sure that, you can store data safely, be able, to track those drones at any time, any moment. So I believe that the potential, what I'm trying to emphasize here is that drones is just a tool, but what is really behind is, artificial intelligence that is going to change everything. And that aspect, and that's why, light, airborne, is going to be the future for aviation. It's because till right now, satellite were, a way to collect those data from, a very inexpensive way. With the drones that are very, inexpensive and at, at a cost, operating cost that are substantially lower than, the one for satellites. I think, the application are going to be just amazing in the years to come.
What about the commercial aspects in aviation? Now you have the traditional customer mindset, right? Say, for example, if someone told me that this plane is being flown on AI, right, and it's going to take me from one destination to the other. Now, the traditional generation, like my grandmother or my mom, if she comes to know it's been flown by nobody, they're not comfortable to get on the aircraft. Now, this is just a customer perception. And I do understand that what's happening now is a lot of the aviation and the industry is actually focusing on having unmanned aircrafts, taking over the commercial aspects. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, I'm really curious to know. And where do you see the commercial airlines adopting 100% AI technology? And when I say AI, it automatically becomes a drone, right? Because it's unmanned. So, and yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
I think a pragmatic approach is that I'll put my mother first in a driverless car, and then she shows that it works, then I'm going to say, see, if the car works, then it will work in a plane because there's no traffic up there. So, but
you should hire him as your head of marketing.
but do you see commercial airlines adopting this full on in the near future?
Yes, I think. So we humans have a tendency to copy. If there are a few brave ones like you and me, if they sit in the plane and they start talking about it, one of the biggest assets we humans have is adaptability. We are very adaptive. With the technology, with weather, with conditions, we adapt ourselves, we learn, and we move on, and that's why we are thriving as comparison to other species. So I think when it comes to this point, we will adapt it. That's my thinking about it.
My point of view is that, well, from a commercial perspective right now, it's pretty difficult to sell out those drones. So you have to segment the market, and I'm going to explain why. And it's due to the fact that we're still talking, about unmanned airborne. So difficult to integrate drones in air traffic due to multitude of reasons. One of them, of course, is the safety concern. So that's why, when we watching movies most of the time, we see like those big drones making wars. We're reading, in the news that drones may change the approach that we may have in the years to come. But you know, it's from a civilian perspective, it's quite limited due to the fact that drones don't have the capacities or capabilities to detect and avoid over airborne. So because of that, the market is segmented. And if you do have like small drones, the VTOL, vertical takeoff and landing, I'm sure that you know that you need to use those drones in very specific areas. So to get back to your question, when you're using, you know, military drones, of course, like it means that you have a purpose and you don't really care about the authorization from, you know, any regulators, FAA or EZA. You go there and you just launch your launch to do, you know, ISR missions or armed missions. But when it's, you know, when your goal is to use drones for the civilian sector, it's much more complicated. And again, if we go back to blockchain, that, you know, blockchain should be able to help, you know, their integration and reliability in air traffic management, in conducting, you know, operation that are sometimes critical in high, you know, traffic areas. So tomorrow, you know, the big challenge for drones is to develop the capabilities that are named, you know, see and avoid or sense and avoid. I don't know if you heard about this, but once we're going to be able, so typically to detect any other aircraft in your environment and to get the proper response, this is how, you know, artificial intelligence is going to be crucial here, because you need to take, you know, decision very quickly. And both aircraft needs to take, you know, a coordinated response so that they don't, you know, crash to each other. So yeah, so from a commercial standpoint, and I'm going to try to be, you know, to make a long story short, on our side for heavy drones, we consider that the markets are developed extensively for the military areas at the moment. Most of, you know, all the players that are designing and manufacturing drones have a major issue. It's how can I use that drone in an urban environment, and you know, we need to provide, you know, reliable, you know, data to the regulators so they can track and make sure that, you know, they can review drone flight data, for instance, all those kind of things, so that the market can really be developed. So it's going to be a long process, but faster than we think, I believe.
Naveen, you were mentioning before that holding the private key or losing the private key is the difference between accessing your data or not. Let me give you a small personal history. After the FTX collapse, some friends of mine convinced me to move all my crypto out of exchanges into a cold wallet, a ledger. I go to the ledger, I start setting it up, I get my private key, and you know, the ledger says, okay, now write this down in a piece of paper. Isn't that like going back in time to a period where technology doesn't exist? It's like, it feels kind of weird that we have all this technology, but in the end, it depends on some writing, some 12 words on a piece of paper, and if I lose that piece of paper, then I'm done. It's kind of crazy.
How beautiful it is.
It's stupid. No?
And I personally know people who actually have these pieces of paper stored in a safe.
Yeah, of course. I mean,
we are working so hard to make it happen. You should be thankful, you know. The thing is,
if I lose my private key and I lose my money, I will not be thanking anybody.
yes, so internet is a whole world where everybody has the connectivity, and everything which is connected with the internet has actually a disadvantage as well. Whereas your piece of paper is with you in your house. There is no way unless somebody breaks in your house and just looks for that paper, which I think all of us now know that you have a piece of paper, so you try to. So it actually.
Luckily, I live very far away, so if you want to break into my house, you need to at least get on a plane.
Well, you know, the funny part is, let's say somebody breaks into your house and he looks on different valuable parts, you know, watches or cash, and no, I just want to have a piece of paper. So how important that piece of paper is. You're right, but unfortunately, you know, you have to take things out of this this whole cosmos system of internet. As long as they are in there, they are not safe. And that your private key is actually your access back to those funds which are now cryptographed and just been locked in the internet. And nobody has access to that. So the thing is, I know what you're saying. It should be one step ahead, that we should have some sort of solution which is in the internet, which is online. If you lose it, you can retrieve it. But then again, you know, there has to be boundaries somewhere. And the boundary is that you lose your private key, that's it. Because if you can retrieve your private key, then somebody else can also. You know, you're not the only one here. There are very smart guys there who's just doing the whole day this thing.
Will depend on that piece of paper for the rest of my life. That's what you're saying.
Make sure you have a lot of copies.
But they advise against that. Make one copy, that's it. Because if you have many copies, then somebody can steal your
just
copy.
Just write it in your email and send it the email to me in case you
I think as the industry evolves, there would probably more smart solutions to store your, you know, keys. I personally just put it in my secure folder, right? And that's what I do personally. So just a suggestion
Thank
for
you.
you.
You know, we have our legal advisor. He's one of the very earliest crypto lawyers. And he was supposed to be here, he's not here. So he had also on the ledger his funds, and he actually downloaded the application from Microsoft because he had a laptop with Windows, and the application was on the Microsoft cloud with the same thing like Ledger. He put his private key in there. It just happened a month ago, and that was actually a fishy application. And that was the only Ledger application on the Microsoft platform. So he actually got hacked, even it was on Ledger, just to give you an example.
You know, Leo, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, you have just revealed where your private key is, and I'm sitting here, I've revealed where my private key is, and I see all these people.
You're very generous too.
Somebody would have someone from there is going to have a good time soon.
I want to go back to something we touched a bit before. You were saying, both of you were saying that your idea of security is getting humanity or the human aspect out of it as much as possible. But if we do that, aren't we losing our freedom to decide or whatever?
See, the human aspect is not getting out of it, because in the end the blockchain is run by humans as well. It's just random humans who are not together, and when these humans are not together, they don't have the same motivation. Instead of giving our data or our power or the whole thing to a centralized, what is a centralized part? It's like we four individuals. If we control a blockchain, then it's a centralized blockchain. It's a private blockchain. It's not a public blockchain. We are 4 nodes, and we can actually go rogue. So we can actually manipulate everything. So the beauty of the blockchain was, as long as there are even a small group of nodes who are not acting in a rogue way, the blockchain would be absolutely transparent. So it's still, the human aspect is there very much. It cannot be run without, but it's all the humans which are not connected to each other, and they are not having one agenda to actually exploit as much as they can other people's money or funds or anything. So it's still very human, but distributed way.
And is there any disadvantage from that decentralization?
Well, I'm a soldier of decentralization. How can I tell you that? I mean, the disadvantage, one thing which we talked about now is, for example, the private key part. There are still limitations of the decentralization part. There's a disadvantage that the whole decentralized campaign is still based on our old school internet web 2.0 thing. So we are still in a very early stage or very early days of this part, and I think the next 5 years are very interesting when you can really see a revolution of decentralization where there will be complete decentralization which will not be based on the web 2.0 centralized part.
In terms of privacy, now big data is a big thing, right? Do you think privacy is something of a key risk or issue here? Like in terms, like you see users now, for example, if they are, say, in a metaverse or they're on blockchain, now there's, what now metaverses are talking about is how they leverage the information based on NFTs, blockchain, and they take the user habits and they advertise to the user. And one of the things that people were talking about, now I know it's a bit different from the traditional industry that you're in, but say, for example, that you are taking this information, it's on the metaverse, and I need to, say, for example, get something delivered. I buy something like a dress, and I take this information, take it out of, I put this on blockchain, and put it on a website where say, a brand is actually getting this information, right, to ship that dress to you. In a way, it's data. It's being shared, but on two different parallel platforms. One is secure, blockchain, one is not. What do you, like, is there any suggestion, is there any way that we could actually avoid this? Like, decentralized means, in a lot of ways, anonymous information, right? Do you think, in terms of making specific decisions for brands, for businesses, you do need a little bit of information about the consumer personally? So,
see, it's what I have explained before. A centralized world is the world which is focused on the big tech, on the big giants, on corporations. They actually own your data, and they use the data. I will not say they misuse it, but they use the data the way they want to use. Now, this anonymous world of decentralization, which you have said, is the user with its private key is the owner of the data. Now, a user can actually, so all of us, we have a lot of data, and we can actually decide which data is sensitive and which is not sensitive. I think all of us have data which we would not like to share with anyone, and all of us have data which we share with our friends, with our family, with this and that, and with our work colleagues, with our company. But this decision of what kind of data has to be shared with who, what is absolute private and what is just normal and what is just public, should be in the hands of an individual, not in the hands of the big giants. And that's where the blockchain or the decentralization part comes. You, as an end user, can decide how do you want to use your data, who you want to share your data with, and what kind of data you want to share it with. And no one else has access to data as long as you don't want it. And that has never been done before. Now, your data on the Twitter or whatever you do on the internet or Google, or what, you have absolutely no right or no say how they use the data or what they do with your data. You cannot even control it. They can shut you off, they can block you, they can delete your account. That's it, you're gone. And that is what the whole Web 3.0 revolution is about, that they can't do it. They cannot stop it, they cannot manipulate it. Your data belongs to you, your participation of internet belongs to you. There should be, again, there is a question of how do you check that, what kind of regulations would be that, well, people who will misuse this freedom, of course they will misuse it, but first, it's always like that. A new technology comes as disrupts things, and then slowly the self-regulations come in. I mean, before when I came, you gentlemen were talking with somebody and he said, we were very early in 2014 and then we started self-regulating ourselves. So this will happen because if you don't self-regulate, then somewhere you will be out of the space because everybody will shun you down saying that you are non-ethical. So the ethics actually bring self-regulatory, but I think we should absolutely start with the fully decentralized part where you are the owner of your own data, and then slowly the trends will come, and then big techs will come approach you and say, hey, maybe we want to pay you, or maybe we want to do a barter system that you give your data to us and we actually, in exchange, provide you some services. That's going to happen.
Or some cryptos.
Or some cryptos, yeah. So that's going to happen, but the first thing is that we actually have an infrastructure where we can say, yes, we are completely not based on the big tech, and we are not relying on them. We have our own cloud, our own bubble, which we completely control. So that is the first start. I mean, the first step to start this.
Perfect. So what's next? I mean, what's next for the Inery group, and what's your next step in the region? What are your plans, and what do you intend to do, and then your short-term goals, just to get the audience to get a perspective and an idea?
So we as Inery Blockchain, we have launched our public testnet around 2 months ago, and it exceeded all our expectations, and is actually make a new record in the blockchain space, that there were more than 2,400 master nodes registered to test our blockchain on the testnet. The number we thought was maybe 200, and it went above 2,000, which is more than many of the very successful layer 1 blockchains mainnet. So having this kind of technical feedback and enthusiasm gives us a lot of boost. So we will be launching our mainnet in next quarter, and then the first ever decentralized database. So any application which is out there can use a decentralized DB. Even you can make a website in the back end, you can use the blockchain. So this is something which has never been done before. That should be coming in the next quarter. Then a few other listings on some exchanges, and a lot of use cases with B2B, as I mentioned, like Bell and many other government institutions, which I will not name, which we are in the pipeline now to close. So we are pushing really hard the adaptation of blockchain technology in various sectors.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, on our side, I think we are in a ramping up process where we want to install, different facilities. Well, one in the US, one eventually in the UAE. And as you can imagine, this is what I was mentioning at the beginning of the event. We're not only a technology provider, we want to become a data provider. And so we really trying to develop disruptive turnkey solution for the end user, where we definitely want to integrate blockchain systems so that we can definitely expand our capabilities to analyze, certain situations. So I believe that's the beginning, and we have many big players, but we really, trying to develop state-of-the-art solution. So we were talking about see and avoid. We're currently developing one of the most advanced solution in that area. We're working with many universities among the world with open sources for developing also a solution for wildfires. I mean firefighting. And so there are plenty of stuff that we wanted to. But again, we believe that, and we hope. I think if I can make just a small comparison with Apple. If you do remember, Apple was a hardware provider, and just when you think about 2000, that was yesterday. 2018, Apple revenues was 60% based on its hardware. As of today, hardware represents less than 20%. So it's a data provider. And I think, when you're talking about data, and I'm listening carefully, Naveen, and I'm totally agree with what you mentioned. Blockchain is going to change the approach that we're having. It's entirely decentralized. It can bring, the security, redundancy, that we need for drones. You were talking about, freedom, privacy. It's a major concern when you're developing drones. There are flight violation in areas where you need to make sure that you're fully complying with, the protocols set by regulations and custom safety standards. So a lot of going on, and we hope that at some point we will become a major player on that market as well.
Thank you, Fabrice. Thank you, Naveen. We will now open questions, unless you have anything to add.
We can open the mic to the public, yes.
We can now open questions for the audience. So, please.
Yeah.
I see a difficult question coming, yeah?
Hello.
If you can just quickly introduce yourself.
Yeah, because I'm a software engineer. Okay. So can you imagine a future where people running blockchain nodes that you depend on somehow lose their incentive to do so? And how do you guarantee the future security of your chains?
So you just introduced you're a software engineer.
Yes.
Well, buddy, I cannot guarantee it if you ask this question.
So how do you then guarantee your investors that whatever you're building is going to remain secure?
Look, we guarantee our investors what we are building is actually fulfilling what we are saying its purpose is. But we cannot guarantee human natures, can we? We cannot say that software engineers like you would stop tomorrow using blockchain technology. If they stop it, they will stop it. I mean, I would not lie to you and say, of course, we guarantee that. We cannot.
I mean, and regarding this security, because you said blockchains cannot be hacked for as long as they're decentralized, right? My question was aiming at, the problem of how do you guarantee decentralization then? But also you have the smart contracts which themselves could be exploited, could be mistakes in them. So how do you secure that, right? Because even though the blockchain cannot be hacked, if you write your faulty smart contract, it can be exploited. So do you have audits? How do you handle this as a company that starts the chains? Because I believe that's what you're doing, right?
So this is a very, very good question or observation which you have said. I would say that, I'm saying again, I mean, if it's a public blockchain, and I said it before also, if it's a public blockchain and it has considerable number of nodes and the validation and the consensus mechanism is right, it cannot be hacked because you cannot, it's immutable. You cannot go in the blockchain and change the blocks which have been done. Smart contracts are a smaller part of the blockchain, which happens for the execution of the things which you do in blockchain. They can be hacked, and they have been hacked in the past, and what we can do is actually hire smart guys like you and companies who can audit the smart contracts. And it has been happened that there have been smart contracts audited by top companies, I will not name it, but there was still some kind of human error, and guys like you exploited it.
Yeah, I've paid a lot of money for auditors, and I've had the same pain. So also, sorry, Fabrice.
No, it's okay. Yeah.
I have a question regarding what you want to do with the blockchain, because right, so far the cost of block space is too high to store real data, and we seem to only be storing relatively small numbers or short texts like URLs. Do you expect that there will be a move where we put real data in the blockchain as well? And is that what you're doing, or are you only putting references and short text like I just said?
Well, I think I was referring to cyber security concerns. When you're talking about drones and the environment that is around, is how can we store data safely? How can we track your drone? So maybe
yeah, you're storing real data. Like I have a map of Ukraine, and I'm storing the entire map on the blockchain.
I'm not involved, in that area. Well, I believe some probably do. On my side, we haven't developed anything at the moment in that perspective.
I would jump in and help Fabrice with that. I think putting the whole data on blockchain, it's still not possible because you're right with that. But if you use micro and metadata, you can actually put a lot of data on blockchain and still serve the purpose.
So where you have basically an incomplete data, but you can verify, that's what you're talking about, like hashes?
No, I'm talking about micro and metadata. So if you use metadata, most of your files, it's a core data, and it actually you can put in 1 megabit, maybe like 500 to 600 files. But if you use full data, which you're saying, full comprehensive data, then we have a scalability problem in that.
Exactly.
So the solution is, which our blockchain used, was use micro and metadata, so we can actually address the scalability issues.
Oh, okay. One more question. Shit. But I actually only had one more, because I enjoyed your conversation about the private key and where you store it. By the way, never store it on a computer that's connected to the internet. That's why you have a ledger. It's
That's his problem.
Should not be connected.
I need some paper.
The paper is better, way better. Anyway, and I was thinking, do your companies work with multi-signature solutions, multi-sig, to get 2 out of the 3 keys required to make a transfer, stuff like this, and that way help your users to be more secure? Because one of the keys could be in your control, 2 of them on theirs. If they lose one of them, you can help them out with a help desk. Right? You get a bit more of the Web 2.0 experience with multi-sig, and if people lose one key, they're still safe. Is that something you're working with? Is that something you're looking at?
Yes, so that's something you can do with our smart contract, which we call a value contract, and you can define that in the value contract.
Perfect.
Wait, what was your good name again?
Lucas.
Thank you very much for the questions. Guys, you have to give a round of applause because those were some good questions right there, right? There were some good questions.
It's a good listener.
Yeah, it's good questions.
He was the whole time, he was on computer just writing. It's okay, he said this, let me write that.
Those are the questions actually we'll look forward to, and this enables other people to learn as well. So after having that, is there anybody else? Yeah.
Hi, my name is Richard. I'm a co-founder of Vernissage, which is a community for Web3 community. I have a question about I think Hamza, you attempted to ask the question, but I don't think you got a full answer. When you're in metaverse, or we're talking about decentralization, keeping your privacy, anonymity, and so on, and then you moved on to delivering things. So there must be, and there will be, somewhere, a borderline between living in your decentralized space and living in your home, where you order something in metaverse, but has to be delivered to your address. So delivery guy needs to know your name, address, phone number, probably, and everything. So I don't think we would be lying to ourselves that everything will be decentralized. It possibly cannot be. You cannot live in your house that is decentralized. So how do you guys go about it? I mean, do you see or do you foresee some kind of fence where decentralization exists and suddenly where normal life begins? There must be some kind of borderline then. How do you see that?
Well, I think the border exists very much at the moment, and if you geographically divide it, I think 99% is all centralized, and there is still, I think, 0.5% decentralized space, which is kind of like popping up like a mushroom and now taking over more and more space. There will be always borders, but I think there will be bridges. So you can actually transfer from one to other, but they are 2 completely different worlds. And if you say one will exist, other won't, I don't think so. I think both will exist. Now, how much harmony they both have, that's a question of the future.
If I may add, I think it would be more of a complementing each other. Yeah, in certain aspects, like decentralized, services can actually solve a lot of problems. I don't know if you guys saw recently, Kanye West lost a lot of money because Adidas blocked his accounts, right? And he comes and says, Bitcoin. So I'm just giving, this is, for example, when people want to have control over their money, blockchain in terms of security, infrastructure, and then obviously you have the real life, right? So yeah, we will definitely see a clear, thin line between the two, centralized and decentralization, but I think in terms of adoption is going to take time. And this is exactly what we are trying to do, give some knowledge to the consumers, people like you, people like the gentleman right there, and of course, our key speakers. So the idea is to address these concerns, have a cohesive mindset on how we can address these concerns. So thank you very much.
Just one more thing, not about decentralization. You mentioned about flying a plane without a pilot. If you think that's ever going to happen, potentially might, but you're already flying and landing the plane without pilot intervenience. So you probably don't even aware of that. In many,
I'm from the aviation industry, so I'm well aware.
I used to work in air traffic control, and many years ago, not recently, no. And they already, I'm talking about late 90s, late 80s, already system were existing where Jumbo can land at the airport and pilot could be asleep. So I can imagine how things have moved since then. So we are flying planes now where pilots not doing much, actually. So
that's true, actually. Yeah. It comes at a matter of trust, where you have two now. Now you have three. You know, you have two pilots and an air officer sitting right behind. It's a matter of trust, I would say, just to make sure that there's no error, because the safety is imperative.
To give your grandmother reassurance.
To give my grandmother reassurance.
It was actually about his grandmother. You know, he was not concerned.
The whole industry is based on Hamza's grandmother.
But you're right. I mean, but how do we take this element out completely is the question. Where, I mean, look at, in the future, airlines might be able to actually save a lot of money, let's be honest, you know, when you don't have two pilots and an air officer sitting down there.
Just imagine the phasing in and phasing out non-kind of pilot planes with air traffic control, where air traffic control knows everything was happening, and suddenly a drone pops up and does its own things. I think the phasing, the transition will be very long.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Very difficult as well. Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you for the questions, guys, and really appreciate it. Thank you, Naveen. Thank you, Fabrice, and thank you, everybody.